Hello everyone, in this video we will talk about the loops in Java. But before we start, as always, I ask you to click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want more content. So what is loop? The loop is an operation which executes the set of instructions until the condition is met. In the most cases until the condition actually becomes true. So let's look at the first and the more simple loop, that's called for loop. So let's imagine situation that we have the array of strings with the some, let's say, 5 values. So let's make it John, Kate, George, and Frank. As we covered in the previous video, we can access any value by doing something like, let's for example print some first item. As you remember, to access first item we have to use index that starts from 0. So let's print names 0. So as you can see that John, that's placed on the 0 position, is printed. But what if you need to print also Kate, George, and the Frank? Of course we can do something like this. Just system out print line 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. But what if we have too much values or have to accomplish this operation in the more fancy way, in the more convenient way? So for example, to print all the names in our string array, we can use the loops. So the for loop starts with the keyword for, then we have to open parentheses, define the variable. Actually we can give it any name we want, but the more convenient is to use I in the programming, and then assign it with the, for example, 0, and then use a semicolon. Then we have to define the condition when our loop has finished. So let's say that the condition will be I is less than 4. Then again the semicolon, and to define the condition to make our loop works, we have to write something like I plus plus, which is incrementation our variable, that is 0 from the very start, to incrementation by 1. The next we have to do is open the curly braces, and inside loop, so this is actually the loop, this is the variable, the condition when the loop has to stop, and the condition not to make our loop infinitive. So to make our loop stops anyway, we have to define some condition that will change the variable that goes through this loop. And inside the loop we will do print names, but instead of providing some digit index, we will use our I. So let's print it to look at this. And as you can see there, all the names are printed just in the one line using loop. So what actually happens here? We define in the variable named I, which starts from the 0. Then we define in the condition that is I less than 4, and then we increment our variable. Inside the loop we execute some operation. So the loop starts from the defining variable, which is I equals 0 in our case. Then it controls if our condition is valid. So the I is, when I is 0, the 0 is less than 4, that is true. So then it executes code and increment our I by 1, actually in this order. So it's define the value, check condition, executes the operation, and then increments. So in the first iteration it prints the name I, where I equals 0. At the end of the loop it increments 0 by 1, so our I became the 1. It checks if 1 is less than 4, then prints the value from our array on the position 1, which is Kate, that is index 1, and increment again to make our I2. And the loops is, you can see how powerful this tool in the programming. So you can, for example, have not 4 names, but you can have some math marks which will have, for example, new int 100 items inside, and you can simply just print 100 items just with the loop, which is very useful and simple. And another thing I want to show you is how to use loops for assigning the arrays. This is actually, we are going back to the previous topic, the assigning of the arrays, and we can fill our int marks with the real data. So how we can accomplish this? Let's just remove this and let's make the for loop, define the variable, and instead of actually writing something like I less than marks, there are situations when we don't know the length of the array or other data structure, but we want to loop from the very first value from the array till the end, and we can write it like the marks, and you can see that IntelliJ suggests you 3 options: is to use some square brackets, which makes no sense probably, and the third operation is to use dot length. So the dot length, actually it's a variable that contains the value that contains the length of the corresponding array. So in this case it will be marks length will equal 100. Let me just show you before we start, just to prove it. So let's make south marks length. Let's print, and you can see that the length of the marks it's 100. So, and now let's just assign the values of our array, and let's just count, not making some marks, but let's just count fill every item in our array with the value equal to our variable. So let's just make marks I equals, just make I multiply to okay. Yeah, actually I forgot the condition. If I not provide the condition where I have to increment our variable, we will get the infinite loop, which will crash our program and probably even our operation systems. So we will need to reload our computer or to break the program. So this is very important to define actually the end of the loop. So the condition that is possible to meet, and the condition when the loop will stops. So, and let's actually print marks I, and you can see that in the 1 second or even less than 1 second, our loop processed 100 items, incrementing, multiplying them by 2. So we have our array filled with the real data. So if you like this video, click the like button, subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, just leave the message, and otherwise I'll see you in the next video.